There's a certain kind of person who doesn't wait for permission, who doesn't need a spotlight handed to them because they're too busy building something real in the background. Mike Finnegan is that kind of person. And his story, the rise, the sudden silence, and what happened after, is one of the most compelling in the history of automotive media. But to understand where he ended up, you have to understand where it all began. It started with a road trip nobody thought twice about. Back in 2012, two editors at Hot Rod magazine, Mike Finnegan and David Freiberger, hatched a plan so simple it was almost ridiculous. Drive to El Paso, find a junker car for $1,500 or less, limp it back to Los Angeles. Sell it on eBay before they even got home. No script, no budget, no network. Just two guys, a camera, and a vehicle that had absolutely no right being on a highway. They uploaded the footage to the Hot Rod YouTube channel, sat back, and waited. What happened next, nobody saw coming. It didn't explode overnight. It was slower than that, and somehow more powerful. Gearheads found the video. Shade tree mechanics found it. Guys who had grown up in garages with their dads found it and felt something they hadn't felt from a car show in years. Realness. Because nothing about it was polished. The workbench wasn't suspiciously clean. The engine didn't get fixed in 30 minutes. Things broke. Things went wrong. Finnegan and Freiberger argued and laughed and kept the camera rolling through all of it, and people couldn't look away. Word traveled. And then someone at Hot Rod said the words every creative person longs to hear. You've got a show. Name it. Make it monthly. Go. Roadkill was born, named for the cars everyone else had already, written off as dead. But here's the thing. The show was only part of the story. The real story is the man behind it. And that origin? It goes much deeper. Before any of this, there was just a kid in Southern California who couldn't leave things alone. No master plan. No guidance counselor pointing him towards stardom. Just a boy surrounded by car culture, absorbing everything around him like a sponge soaking up engine oil. He taught himself to weld. He figured out fabrication by building things that didn't work and rebuilding them until they did. He installed car stereos for a living, not glamorous, not lucrative, but it kept him close to cars, and that was what mattered. And somewhere along the way, that hands-on obsession found a new outlet in writing. He started contributing to niche technical publications, the kind of deep-dive magazines serious builders actually trusted. You cannot fake that kind of knowledge in front of people who spend their weekends doing the real thing. Finnegan wasn't faking anything. That credibility opened the door to Motor Trend, then Hot Rod magazine, then a chance meeting with Freiberger, and the rest, as they say, is history. But the most important chapter, it hadn't even started yet. Roadkill ran for 13 seasons. In a media landscape where even beloved shows disappear after 3, that's extraordinary. And it earned every episode. Because while every other car show was gleaming and scripted, Roadkill was basically a cheerful act of defiance. Transmissions died on the highway. Engines that were supposedly fixed started leaking again 30 miles later. And instead of cutting away, they pulled over, got under the car in a parking lot and figured it out. That became the soul of the show. Failure wasn't a problem, it was just the next thing to solve. The Rotsun, the Vetterkart, a Monte Carlo, on hydraulic suspension fighting gravity all the way to Vegas. These weren't stunts, they were adventures. And through all of it, Finnegan was the guy who made you feel like you were right there in the garage with him, never slick, never condescending, always exactly what you saw. But while all of this was unfolding, something else was quietly taking shape. Something that would matter a great deal more than anyone realized. Smart people who work for others build something of their own at the same time, and that's exactly what Finnegan did. While Roadkill was growing into a cultural institution on Motor Trend's platform, he had already started Finnegan's Garage, his own YouTube channel, his own space, his own rules. No co-host, no network schedule, no narrative arc handed down. From above, just a man in a garage working on cars, talking to a camera, long, real, completely unfiltered. The builds were extraordinary. Blasphemy? a 1955 Chevy Bel Air stuffed with a supercharged Hemi engine, named because putting a Chrysler engine in a Chevy is basically automotive sacrilege. He raced it at brutal drag and drive events. He stripped a 2018 Lexus LC500 to a shell and rebuilt it into a tube chassis drag machine. He hand-formed floor panels from raw sheet metal for a 1961 Cadillac Coupe de Ville because he couldn't find replacements. He brought home a 1998 GMC Sierra with 12,000 original miles and immediately started making it lower, louder, and faster. By 2024, Finnegan's Garage had crossed 800,000 followers on Instagram alone, with millions of YouTube views, brand partnerships, a co-hosted podcast, and a presence at every major event in the automotive world. He had become, quietly and without fanfare, one of the most influential independent voices in the entire industry. And then came the silence. November 18th, 2024. A Monday. No press conference, no carefully worded publicist statement. Just Mike Finnegan, back on his Reddit community, typing plainly and without drama. I just learned that it's over. After wrapping season 13 just weeks earlier, he had been told there would be no more episodes. Ever. Motor Trend Productions was shutting down completely. He didn't know who owned the intellectual property. He didn't know who to even ask. He just said he was proud of what they'd built and that it seemed like the end. The automotive internet didn't take it well. Roadkill Garage, Engine Masters, Hot Rod Garage, Vice Grip Garage, all of it gone in one corporate sweep. Because that's what this was, not creative fatigue, not declining ratings. This was Warner Brothers Discovery, sitting under $40 billion in debt after a disastrous merger, sharpening its knives and deciding what was expendable. 167 episodes, 12 years of automotive culture. A team that had built something genuinely irreplaceable, sacrificed to a balance sheet. No final season, no farewell episode. No chance for Finnegan and Freiberger to say goodbye to the audience that had made them. The last episode they'd filmed would just be the last episode, full stop, and that, to the fans who had watched since 2012, was a completely different kind of loss. So what does a man do when 12 years of work gets taken from him with no warning and no goodbye? He walks back into the garage. Within weeks of the announcement, Finnegan was back. Building, racing, filming, and talking to his audience exactly as he always had. Because here's what Warner Brothers Discovery never quite grasped. They hadn't taken his platform, they'd taken a show. And those are not the same thing. New episodes kept coming. A mystery drag-and-drive project car with a custom 400 cubic inch LS engine targeting 6-second quarter miles. Live coverage from the 2024 PRI show in Indianapolis. Blasphemy back in the shop at Harrell Engine and Dyno, getting rebuilt after a misfire ended his drag week run, with safety upgrades and a full front suspension conversion for better high-speed control. He showed up at SEMA in Las Vegas. He visited historic drag strips. He explored warehouses, introduced new projects, and kept doing what he'd always done, solving problems on a Tuesday afternoon that most people wouldn't even know how to begin. The sponsors kept coming. The numbers kept climbing. And that audience, the same one that fell in love with a $1,500 road trip over a decade ago, followed him straight into the post-Roadkill era without missing a beat. Because they were never following the Motor Trend logo. They were following Mike Finnegan. And that is the most important lesson buried in this entire story. Build something that belongs to you, not to a network, not to a streaming platform, not to a corporation that can be swallowed by a bigger corporation on any given Monday. Real authenticity, the kind that lives in grease-stained hands and genuine laughter and engines that leak on camera, is not something a spreadsheet can repossess. Roadkill may be gone, the garage door is still up, the engine is still running. And the kid from Southern California, who never stopped taking things apart, is still doing exactly what he's always done, figuring out how to put them back together better than before. Motor Trend didn't make Mike Finnegan. Mike Finnegan made Motor Trend matter, and when they pulled the plug, he did what every great builder does. He looked at the wreckage, figured out what was worth saving, and got back to work.